Hi, everybody, and welcome to this week's Theological Leftover. Today, I want to share a very small phrase from a hymn. I mentioned this, I thought of it while we were singing our sermon hymn, our wonderful sermon hymn this past Sunday. This phrase that I have on my bulletin board here because I love it so much. The sermon on Sunday reminded me of it, and I kind of mentioned it, and I got it totally wrong. I was thinking what I was sharing with the congregation was a title to a hymn, and it's not. It's a lyric in a hymn. So I sent my members off on a wild goose chase looking for this title in their hymnals. My guess is there were at least a couple of people who went looking for it. So I thought I would use this theological leftover opportunity to set the record straight. The hymn that I was talking about, that the passage is in the Lutheran Service Book, hymn 671. It's in our section that has to do with the church triumphant. And the song, 671, is called Sing with All the Saints in Glory. And I'll share the phrase with you in a moment, but for those of you who weren't there on Sunday, just so you know why I'm sharing this phrase, our Old Testament, our gospel reading, both focused on resurrection. Our gospel reading pointed to the fact that even though, I guess it pointed to the fact that Jesus is the resurrection and the life. Enough said, right? He is the Lord of life. The origin of life, Jesus. The source of life, Jesus. The one who sustains all things, all life, that's Jesus, right? So it's not really a surprise for us when we read the story about this poor widowed woman, her husband has died, and now she's in a funeral procession with her son, who has now died. And Jesus comes up and he has compassion on her, and he tells the young man to arise. And even though he's dead, he arises and he talks. It's clear to everyone he was dead and now he's alive. And we're not surprised by this because Jesus is the Lord of life. He has power over death. Death, as he said in the sermon, is hanging on just by a thread. Right? Death is almost, in fact, it is vanquished. It doesn't win, right? But soon, death will be past, and all that there will be is life for God's people. And we look forward to that day. We really look forward to that day because we see death and the evidence of death and the process of death all over the place, so much so that sometimes we feel helpless. And that's why I want to share with you. I'm going to read part of this hymn to you, maybe the whole thing, but then I'll point out this one phrase. It's a title, if you will, that's given to every son and daughter of God, every child of God, and it's beautiful. And I want you to know it's talking about you because Christ died for your sins. You are forgiven, and where there is forgiveness, there must also be life and salvation. All right, so I'll get to that in a moment, but first, stanza 1 of hymn 671. Sing with all the saints in glory, sing the resurrection song. Death and sorrow, earth's dark story, to the former days belong. All around the clouds are breaking, soon the storms of time shall cease. In God's likeness we awaken, knowing everlasting peace. Isn't this great? This dark story of death, it is Earth's story, but it's coming to a conclusion, right? The clouds are breaking. The storms of time soon shall cease. In God's likeness, we awaken. Think of your baptism, where you were baptized into Christ, where you were clothed with Christ, where you were given Christ's righteousness. That's the likeness of God that's being talked about here. Not something you create by your works, but something that is given to you as a gift. In God's likeness, we awaken, knowing everlasting peace. Right? That's stanza 1. Haven't gotten to the part that I really want to share with you yet. Stanza 2. Oh, what glory, far exceeding all that eye has yet perceived. We don't see it yet, do we? but the glory that's far exceeding all that eye has yet perceived. Holiest hearts for ages pleading, never that full joy conceived. God has promised, Christ prepares it. There on high our welcome waits. Every humble spirit shares it. Christ has passed the eternal gates. So there's this glory that's far exceeding. We don't see it with our eyes, right? The holiest hearts for ages have pleaded for this, never, however, that full joy conceived, right? Not only have they not seen it, they haven't even fully conceived of this glory that awaits us. But God's people throughout the ages have prayed for, pleaded for it, have waited eagerly for it. And then it says this: God has promised it, right? Christ prepares it. Remember, he says, I go to prepare a place for you. Christ prepares it for us. There on high, our welcome waits. It's inevitable. Thanks be to Jesus. It's inevitable. It's coming, as sure as death is going. It says, every humble spirit shares it. Every humble spirit shares it. Christ has passed the eternal gates. Christ has passed the eternal gates, and he's done it for us. He's there preparing it for us. He intercedes for us. He comes to us to give us, again, his forgiveness, to encourage and strengthen that faith. These verses, they're so beautiful. If this is what we talked about on Sunday, I hope you were able to join us. Verse 3, this is the last verse, and this is where the beautiful, beautiful title is given to you. It says, life eternal, heaven rejoices, Jesus lives who once was dead. Shout with joy, O deathless voices. Child of God, lift up your head. Life eternal, oh, what wonders crowd on faith, what joy unknown. When amid earth's closing thunders, saints shall stand before the throne. So many wonderful things there. Please take the time, look at LSB number 671, Sing with All the Saints in Glory. If you don't have a Lutheran service book, look up Sing with All the Saints in Glory, and you'll be able to listen to it and see the lyrics online, right? But take the time to reflect on this good news that the Lord of life has brought into your life through the forgiveness of sins by his death and by his resurrection. Now, before I finish, I've got to tell you what the title is, right? There was a title, and there was an exhortation that went with the title. It says, shout with joy, O deathless voices. And that was the phrase that I thought was the title of the hymn, and why some of you, if you were looking, couldn't find it. It's a stanza. It's a phrase. It's sort of a title. Shout with joy, O deathless voices. Your voice is deathless. You can sing, you can shout God's praises, you can thank him for what he has done for you forever. Because you, thanks be to Jesus, are God the Father's eternal child. Shout for joy, O deathless voices. Something for you to think about and meditate on, this wonderful hymn. I hope you enjoy it. I hope that I get to see you this coming Sunday. Who knows what wonderful phrases and words and encouragement will be brought to us from our reading of the scriptures and from our singing of these beautiful hymns that the church has given us, that God has given us through his church. God bless you all. God bless your week.